Welcome to the Meat and Potatoes podcast. We're here with Dale Majors, who's the co-owner at Grand Trunk. How are you?
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
And like the founder and CEO of Venture Anyway, right?
Correct.
We're going to be talking about both. We have some cool stories to share and really some good advice I think we'll be able to draw from your brain because you've had a lot of experience. So we'll be all over the place, but let's start with Grand Trunk. What is the company? What is the story as it involves you?
Yeah, so Grand Trunk started 20 years ago, two partners, and 3 years ago, the company was in trouble and they were looking to sell. So Andy and I had run similar e-commerce companies. I ran Bikewagon.com, he ran CampSaver.com, and we were both a couple years, a year plus out of selling our companies. And we went on a family bike tour together. We went on a family camping trip together, and we kind of were open to finding a deal together. And this one came across his desk. So we, in March of 2020, we traveled to Chicago under like heavy. I think it was June. We traveled to Chicago with pretty good lockdowns and to do some due diligence, and we bought it, I think, June of 2020.
Okay, interesting time to do all of that.
It was scary. We didn't know if the industry was going to go, if it was going to go well or poorly. So he and I and my brother Bruce bought it, and we didn't know that with the lockdowns that outdoor gear would explode and do so well. So we kind of lucked out with timing.
Yeah, and essentially what you bought was a lot of inventory.
Yeah, so we bought the brand, of 20 years, and then they had a good bit of inventory. They had been in the negative before, spending a lot of money on marketing and some other stuff. So, it was mostly an inventory purchase. And we knew, having run the businesses that we ran previously, that we could be really lean. I think the difference between an e-commerce company where you're a retailer versus a brand owner, you're going from like maybe a standard of 20 to 25 points net margin when you own the brand. These are generalizations, but maybe you net 20 points, where if you're a retailer, you might fight to net 5 to 7%. So we were used to fighting that battle of scratching and clawing to save every penny. So when we looked at the financials, we saw lots of opportunity for profit.
And you were able to look at the financials and see the opportunity there because you guys had went through that on your own, right? You learned through the School of Hard Knocks. Mm-hmm. Your first one was Bikewagon.
Yep.
And what was that?
So Bikewagon was an evolution. It started from going to a salvage freight store and buying sporting goods and selling them on eBay. And I served a mission for my church, and then I got back, and I was making a few grand a month selling bike parts on eBay. And I got my dad involved, to pay him. I was going to pay him $3,000 a month, and we would be partners in this new venture. We just started selling a lot of bike parts. And going back to the P&L part, and I tell this to a lot of newer companies, like when we did our finances every month, at the end of the day, I would, tell my dad how much we spent on each part, and he would figure out our profit and whatever. It was always less than we thought. Like every time we went to the finances, we're like, oh, you go in feeling good. Oh, this was a great month. Oh, lots of sales, whatever. But once we came down to the net number, we're like, oh, okay. Yeah, that wasn't as much as we thought. So I think it's really important for people to do like constant gut checks on knowing your numbers really well.
Yeah. It's a really good piece of advice. We meet with our accountant once a week. And if we didn't do that, I think we'd be in a misconception, like everything's going good. We're killing it. And then it's usually like, no, you guys suck. But it keeps you centered.
But here's how you can do better.
Yeah.
There's opportunity, and you have to, I think it's a balance of staying hopeful. But as we look around at buying different businesses or seeing opportunities to buy, like 2 years ago, we bought a brand called A-Light Designs and rolled it into Grand Trunk. But it's amazing how many founders are just negative. You're like, wow, okay, you've run this business for 7 years and there's no equity.
Yeah.
And you owe the bank $500,000 and you have only $200K in inventory. You're like negative $300,000. Like,
Yeah.
How did this happen? And you say you need more money? Like I think a big misconception is people thinking that more money will solve their problem, where it's like, it's not really a money problem.
Yeah. So what have you guys found through application that works to kind of solve that problem?
I think having a good good accurate reporting that you review weekly and monthly.
Yeah.
To know that, like, oh, we're not making as much money on these things as we thought.
Yeah.
Oh, this was our actual margin. So I think reporting is probably and just having good transparency into what's actually happening is probably the most important thing that I can think of.
So with Bikewagon, you had your dad to crack open the old spreadsheet.
Mm-hmm.
As you guys evolved and improved, what were some key takeaways there that you've been able to apply to everything else?
There was a company called Quality Bike Products in Minnesota, and they were a bike distributor, like best in class bicycle parts distributor. Of the 5, they were the best. And we met with they had an event at their place every year called Frostbike, and their CFO sat down with us and helped us see, we think that our business is unique. We're like, oh, we're this online bike shop unique. They're like, no, actually not. Here's 20 other, and they showed us a bunch of benchmarking data. They showed us 20 other competitor companies where they took away the names of everyone, and they basically said, look, here's 6 buckets you can track. You can track your fixed costs, you can track your rent, you can track your administrative expenses, your cost of goods sold, your marketing expenses, shipping expenses. Here's how you compare to everyone else. And when we saw that and realized that, oh, payroll for a company like ours is 11%. It's maybe a good target, and we're at 14. Ooh, there's 3 points. Or shipping is, 12 and we're 13. What can we do? That's how you end up at 7 points. I think just having a good model is pretty important, I think.
Yeah. And so eventually you're able to sell Bikewagon, correct?
Mm-hmm.
What was that like? Somebody was courting you, I would assume?
Yeah, so I like the book, The E-Myth. And I always thought, hey, I just want to build a sellable business. So I always want it to be sellable. And when we had several people that said, hey, would you be open to selling your company? And I'm like, yeah, we're always open to everything. So I would have conversations with people. And there was one company that we actually looked at buying them. And then I just didn't really feel good about it. And I didn't think we were capitalized well enough for it. And then 2 years, but I stayed in touch with our operations manager, Mitch Lamb, who runs Level 9 Sports now. And then 2 years later, Mitch had sold and kind of bought Level 9 from the previous owner with an investor. And then we talked about it again, and they ended up buying us. So it was a previous relationship, somebody I'd known. And that's how that came about.
Yeah. And so for you, what was going through your head as you're getting ready to sell this? You'd obviously worked very hard on it over the years. Was it, here I come, Cancun? Or was it, I can't wait to go do the next thing?
Well, yeah, within 6 months, I did buy a new couch, a sectional.
Yeah.
Which was cool. And I bought an electronic bidet instead of the cold water ones. So that was like my celebration. But
high living.
No, I'm kind of but no, not so much that. When I started my business at the very beginning, at the offset, after doing my bike trip from Canada to Mexico, I thought, man, entrepreneurship's the only thing that I'll be able to do that could give me that kind of freedom. Mm-hmm. So I have to do that. So every decision I made kind of prioritized freedom. And even to the point where I had like a living expenses lifestyle number. And I'm not like a high living kind of guy, so that number wasn't huge. And I needed an exit to satisfy that, so I could check off that, box to say, so that was one of the reasons I sold. Was it was very much geared towards like freedom.
Yeah. And then it happens, and like that's a pretty good milestone for any entrepreneur. You've got this other venture called Venture Anyway. Mm-hmm. And doing a quick look at it, it looks like you're very passionate about it, and it looks like you're able to distill advice and counsel through this. Explain to the listeners what this is.
Yeah. So I meet a lot of people that I feel are smarter or better equipped than I am in life. And I'm always surprised that these people don't have as many of the things that they want
Mhm.
in their life. And I think, why is it that you have all of this capacity, but you're not getting either the freedom or whatever it is that you probably want more of? And why is it that I've been able to like do the things that I've wanted to do?
Yeah.
So in with this coaching company, a lot of our content is around like values and really clearly defining what you want and how much you want each of those things, and then aligning daily activities and all of your goals and how you spend your time and energy to those things. So it's not about like, hey, I want to help people make tons of money. I really just want to help people say like, wow, we're all so distracted that we're maybe chasing things that we don't want to chase. So I try to create an environment and a space for people to take a step back, block out some of the noise to clearly create more of a plan for themselves.
Yeah. And how does it work overall? Like, is the end result somebody that's achieved what they want through your program? Do they come back for more? What is like a good result for you guys?
Yeah. So the end result is I believe a lot in just nature and the law of the harvest and how people can't just change overnight.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not trying to say like, hey, dude, I'm going to get you like amazing clarity over the next 4 months and your life will be different.
Yeah.
But I do want to I want people to be more clear about, productive and unproductive ways they're spending their attention.
Mm-hmm.
Have more confidence in a plan, in their ability to change and create plans that will get them what they want, and not, in 2 months. But yeah, so that's a lot of it. How does it work? Like, what do I actually do? I hold a monthly retreat. Like I had one 2 weeks ago. I have one on March 3rd at our building in Bountiful, Builder Studios, where we do an all-day training. I charge $150. I do a 4-month cohort with 9 calls of 90 minutes each over 4 months. That is $1,500. I have a couple other things that's more of a monthly CEO group,
Mm-hmm.
but that's how everything I do is in groups. And one of the I think that one of the best things you can do as an entrepreneur is get to know a bunch of other entrepreneurs that will give you, free advice and share their war stories with you. I kind of call it like access without an agenda. Like every coach has an agenda. They want to get on retainer. They want to sell you something more, so I've really been careful to have like, I sell 3 things. You can join these 3 things from me. Otherwise, like that's it. That's all I've got.
Yeah.
Or rent my office space. I guess I can sell that too.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is like a co-working office space in Bountiful.
Yeah. Yeah. 5th South and Orchard Drive in Bountiful for those from Davis County. And we've got about, it's a 24,000 square foot building with 50 individual offices. And we just built out 10 new offices. We have a podcast video studio and several conference rooms. And
very cool.
It's a cool spot.
So something like that, you were probably formulating in your brain for quite some time, probably even while you're doing Bikewagon, correct?
Yeah, like I always wanted to have in Ninja Turtles, Shredder had a hideout, with all the bad kids where they would like smoke and play on skateboards.
Yeah.
I was like, I want a cool hangout place like that, but more like G-rated for entrepreneurs. So I'm trying to create like a cool spot. I've wanted to have a co-working space for a long time. I saw the model somewhere else, and I love community. I love I like buildings. I like space.
Yeah.
So when the opportunity came up, we were pretty excited to take it.
Yeah. Very cool. Give us a quick example, best you can, with like one of those 90-minute phone calls. What is talked about? Yeah.
So like one of the books we read a book every month. And the first book we read is How Will You Measure Your Life by Clayton Christensen. And he talks about, emergent versus deliberate strategies. And he talks about, hey, how your strategy is how you're actually spending your time. Your strategy is different than you say it is because, you're not spending your time in the ways that you say you are. So, everyone shares their perspective and take and what they could change. And I have a couple hours of online content that people go through as well, where I pose questions and they go through a workbook. But I let I guide people through a discussion around those principles and kind of encourage and prod each person along to make it relevant for themselves.
Yeah. And it's entrepreneurs for the most part, I would assume?
Yeah.
And are they focusing on like where they spend their time in their business, or is it their life in general?
It's very holistic.
Okay.
It's like, I think for entrepreneurs, it's how you manage yourself. It's not like how you manage your work self versus your home self. I think it's too hard to blur, to separate them. It's 100% like how do you manage yourself across all those roles?
Yeah. So hearing all of this, you look like a good use case because you've got a lot of pokers in the fire. Venture Anyway. You've got these like very long bike rides you go on with your family. You're going on one in Europe we were talking about beforehand.
Yeah.
And then Grand Trunk. So do you often apply the principles to yourself and redistribute what you're learning on your own to all of these clients?
I definitely, 100%. When I was just consulting, I spent 2 years not having a project to work on, and I was only a consultant. And things got easier and easier and more black and white when I was just consulting, because it's really easy to talk about other people's problems.
Yeah.
But then once I adopted some of my own problems again and had these businesses, you realize and you kind of get hit in the face like, oh yeah, that's complicated.
Yeah.
Like a lot of this stuff is just really complicated, even simple things. That's why, that bugged me about school a lot was, oh, here's just how you do it. And you're like, oh, but it's like, and people problems, everything is so gray.
Yeah.
And so I like having the reminder as all the time I'm like, well, we really need to do this better at Grand Trunk, or man, I need to do this better in my other business. It's nice to have that, to be in that reality, building businesses when I'm talking with entrepreneurs, because I think I can stay connected in a very real way, because I'm an entrepreneur at heart. Like I'm an entrepreneur first and like a coach second or third.
So how do you kind of divide up your time then?
I'm a day a week Grand Trunk, and then Venture Anyway, Builder Studios takes the rest of my time.
Okay. Circling back to Grand Trunk, you mentioned there was another acquisition. I forgot the name. I apologize.
A-Light Designs.
A-Light Designs. And is that going to kind of be the strategy for Grand Trunk going forward, is growth through acquisition?
Yeah, that's a lot of what we're working on.
Okay. So you've got all the metrics and the data and the reporting and all of that. How do you guys kind of make your decisions on where to go next?
Some is opportunistic, and a lot of times just looking at what's the most effective thing we could work on.
Yeah.
What's the most important, effective thing we could work on and allocate energy there. Same thing with my personal, Builder Studios. Right now we're building the space. We're under construction. I'm spending a lot of time there, and we kind of bounce around. Right now at Grand Trunk, last year we spent a lot of time on product development.
Yeah. And it's tough to boil it down, but product development, if you could summarize it, what does that entail?
It entails hiring really smart product developers, maybe contracting them, and choosing a couple products, going through a bunch of iterations. Maybe I took my son to Vietnam for a week in November to visit a factory, factory visits, and then product launch. Yeah, I don't think I summed that up very well.
No, it's good. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, it will be launched.
Yeah.
If it's successful. But which is probably a 30-hour podcast of, the Vietnam factory and the holding it and testing it. And it's just got to be a pretty fun process, I would imagine.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun. There's a sense of pride when your friend says, hey, we're in Louisiana and, Luke didn't know that you owned Grand Trunk. There's Grand Trunk hammocks in this, Dick's Sporting Goods or whatever. You're like, oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So to know that you'll put something out into the world that has, some bigger distribution is really fun.
Yeah. And there's certain products that I think you might like more than others. And there might be some products that you wish Grand Trunk could sell or create. How do you combat that versus like the metrics and the data?
Yeah. I 5 years ago, I said, I want to do my coaching and I want a family travel company because I want products like for when we go to Europe for 3 months and we ride bikes, like those are the kinds of products that I want. Where you can't venture too far because it needs to stay in brand, but that's hard.
I bet. You talked a little bit about your bike ride from Canada to Mexico. Just some harebrained questions here. What route did you take?
Pacific Coast Highway.
Okay.
Greyhound bus to Seattle, ride up to Port Angeles, ride down to Tijuana, and then go home.
Very cool. And it took how long?
6 weeks.
And do you camp on the side of the road? Hotel? Motel?
Mostly, no, all camping, campsites.
Very cool. What happens if you don't quite get to the campsite in time?
Side of the road.
Side of the road.
You kind of bug out somewhere and find a place to sleep. But when we travel with our family, we have like a couple rules, like never ride at night. We've been stuck riding at night a few times and it's terrible. We try to arrive at our campsite at like 3 or 4 p.m. So we travel in the summer, so you usually have hours to find a next spot before it gets dark.
Yeah. What is the best practice? Ride with traffic or against?
Absolutely with traffic.
Okay.
And we mostly ride on trails. We ride on dedicated paths. So that there's the Loire River in France. It's maybe an hour and a half train ride from Paris. Traverses most all of France, and there's a bike path 80% of the way. And then when you're not on a bike path, you're on a very chill road.
Very cool. I would imagine you meet a lot of interesting people on these trips.
And we may be the interesting people to a lot of people. And not in like a cool, flattering way, but like, who are these weirdos riding their bikes with other kids? But yeah, we meet interesting people.
Yeah. Do you have ideas for products during these trips?
100%, yeah. Sometimes, yeah. I don't know if I've ever had a successful, good product idea on a trip. But while being away from the business, I always have good ideas about the business and how I'm spending my time. There's something about doing something else all day long than you're used to that lets you see things more clearly.
Yeah. You probably sleep pretty well at night too.
Really well, yeah.
Yeah. That's got to be a lot of fun. So you're going to do the one in Europe with your whole family?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
6 kids?
Yeah, 14 down to 2.
So the 2-year-old's just going to ride?
Riding a trailer. It's not very good for him. A lot of trailer time.
Probably won't remember it.
Nah.
But you will.
Yeah.
That's what's important. What is coming down the chute for Grand Trunk over the next 2 years?
We've invested a lot into A-Light Designs, the chair company. So we have some really good camping chairs coming out. And a few other, we've invested a lot in new products. So I'm thinking back, we have products planned through 2020, like some of them are 2024, some are 2025. We've already done most of the work. So it's kind of funny to think about what will come next year and the year after. But we do have we probably have 10 new products that are in development and going to be launched.
Very cool. And with the coworking in Davis County, I assume it's any type of company that can come.
Yeah, I'm really gearing it towards newer entrepreneurs that are building something. So not so much like, hey, I hate working at home and I work for HP remote. Like, I don't really, that's not our target.
Gotcha.
More like a business owner that doesn't have a steady income that's trying to figure things out. Those are the people that I want, like wandering through the lunchroom and meeting other people.
Yeah. And I assume you'll spend a lot of time there. What are you going to do when they kind of beat a path to your door asking for advice or, hey, can you look at this just real
Well,
quick?
so like I run my office is going to be one of the utility closets.
Mhm.
So, and the room's not big enough to keep the door open, so maybe that'll help.
There you
I
go.
think that's a funny joke. But it's true. We have I hold a monthly retreat, like not a retreat learning seminar type thing with different experts that come in, and then I present for a few hours. And that's really fun. And I think maybe some open office hour type things, but
Yeah.
I hope there's a lot of knowledge share.
Mhm. Yeah, it seems like it'll happen.
Yeah.
Just organically, let alone that you guys kind of structured that way. Well, with folks like you that have all sorts of fun experiences and really cool hobbies, we could go for a long time. But unfortunately, we'll keep this podcast to 20, 25 minutes.
If you'd like to go 3 hours right now, I can for you. I'm just kidding, Garrett.
No, it's a lot of fun. So if folks are interested in anything that you're doing, where could they go?
So LinkedIn is great. Venture Anyway. If you want to really make my day, you can fill out one of the forms on ventureanyway.com that I don't push that much. So like really, if you fill out the form, you'll probably be like my hero. Because I get an individual email about it. I'm like, whoa, cool, this person signed up. How did they find me?
Very fun. Well, thank you for taking the time, Dale. I know you're busy and you've got a lot going on, and hopefully you can have a fun, safe bike journey this summer. A little bit jealous, but good for you.
As you learn more about it, you won't be that jealous.
I could stand to lose a lot of pounds, and that seems like a good way to do it.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Dale. I really appreciate it, and look forward to having you on again and getting updates on all of the awesome projects you got.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.